Prayer isn't for everyone. That's a big opener. Almost everyone I know prays. Many people only when there's an imminent reason to call in the divine and ask for a favor, whether it's a healing or a gratitude, a presence, simply a peaceful heart to deal with the reality of life. But prayer isn't for everyone. My simplistic definition of prayer is that it's a way for me to connect with the divine. Some people call it chatting with God, however you define that term. A broader definition might be something like a focused intention. And in that definition, we find many ways to connect. But that actual word prayer doesn't set well with everyone. Some people call it casting a spell, because in some ways, asking God to soften the heart of a person who's creating chaos and evil is the same as chanting words to that effect while maybe burning incense. Both activities are calling in spiritual energies to make a change in the mortal world. My spiritual friends might use the word manifestation when they're connecting with the divine energies, as in the phrase, putting it out to the universe. The theory is that if you talk about something long enough, the energy of the thought builds and things can actually change. There's a comedic woman publishing short reels now about manifesting. She typically lies in her yard in her bathrobe and talks to the sky about what she needs and hopes will happen in her life. And then she turns to the camera and tells the viewers, it's called manifesting. Look it up. Several years ago, creating personal vision boards was a hot topic. I made several and taught workshops on how to create one and how to subsequently use it. For those of you who may have missed that trend, a vision board is a large poster filled with words, photos, pictures cut from magazines, quotes, and phrases that all point to a goal you have for yourself. We used to write the goal or intention on the back of the poster so it was right there with us as we worked. Another way to look at intentionally sending energy into the universe is to study quantum physics. Wait, what? Using science to explain prayer? Well, yes. As our knowledge of science grows, we can more readily see how the physical and the metaphysical worlds work. I return to the definition of prayer that I offered earlier, that of focused intention. No matter what we call it or how we carry out a ritual in its name, focused intention is sending energy into the universe with an expected outcome. I turn to our neighbors in the Baha'i faith tradition. Rarely has Baha'i been mentioned in God Talks, but it occurred to me that with Iran's citizens being of concern today, we might want to learn about another of the world's religions. The Baha'i faith originated in Iran in the 1800s. It is a monotheistic religion which is based on the interconnectedness of all humans on the planet and promotes peaceful living among all major world religions. Baha'is believe that God organizes and teaches the people of the world through many prophets, including Abraham, Buddha, Jesus, and Muhammad. Baha'is add one more prophet named Baha'u'llah. His people are viewed as all being sent by one God to reach many people. Other features of this religion are equality between women and men and the elimination of wealth that polarizes and causes more people to be poor. Another interesting aspect is that of having no hierarchy in church leadership, no priests, no ordained clergy. And here's the one that attracts me. Baha'is steer away from alcohol, drugs, and partisan politics. I felt this introduction to the Baha'i faith was necessary because within it dwells a huge connection between quantum physics and prayer. Quantum physics teaches us that what we really see when we look at a table or a tree or at one another is a massive concentration of energy. Everything is actually moving particles, not a solid entity. And as such, we are all really collections of vibrating atoms. And here's where science and religion bond. In 1918, a German physicist named Max Carl Ernst Ludwig Planck won the Nobel Prize in Physics for his discovery of how energy works. Here's a quote to explain things. Both religion and science require a belief in God. For believers, God is in the beginning, and for physicists, he is at the end of all considerations. To the former, he's the foundation. To the latter, the crown of the edifice of every generalized worldview. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force which brings the particles of an atom to vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume that behind this force, the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind exists. Unquote. This intelligent mind is what some people call God. Now, add to this the idea that all of these vibrating parts are connected to one another, sort of in an orchestra of the universe. This is called quantum entanglement, and it gives us reason to believe that prayer works by energizing those moving parts across oceans and mountain ranges. Because we can pray for the healing of someone who lives thousands of miles from us. We can send good wishes to a person whose name we don't even know. When we focus the intention on a deity, we call it prayer. When we focus on chanting, manifesting, vision boards, or quantum physics, we may call it something else. But it is all a focused feeling, a yearning to connect with the energies of the cosmos with an expected outcome. Let's use the word prayer for an intentional energy being put forth to God, however you perceive God. And let's say that praying doesn't change God. Prayer is powerful because it changes us, the praying people. Prayer intensifies and focuses our desires and our gratitude. Prayer causes us to pause, to put a comma or a period in our thought process and in our daily lives. Prayer asks us to be focused. One of my family members prays silently before a meal, even in a restaurant. And when I was younger, that practice made me feel uneasy, as though other people in the restaurant would think we were strange. Now, as with many other details of life, I outgrew that feeling and understand that pausing for prayer at any time of day or night is absolutely appropriate. My good friend Jean passed over to the immortal shore last summer. She and I had raised our children together and had celebrated a lot of fun times through the years at one another's homes. She presented a children's moment during a Sunday service one week years ago, and it totally exemplifies that there is no wrong time to pray. I'll end today with a description of her lesson. Jean walked to the front of the church with a blanket and a pillow in hand, sat on the altar steps, leaned over and laid her head on the pillow, then covered herself with the blanket and closed her eyes. The children watched with anticipation of what would come next, and then nothing. Nothing came next. Jean remained in the pretend sleeping mode for what felt like a very long time. Finally, she opened her eyes and sat up. She continued the lesson with words as she explained that we all need to sleep, to rest, to renew ourselves each evening, but that God rests but never ever sleeps. We can always talk to God, and God will hear us every time, even in the middle of the night, and even if we don't call it praying. God bless Jean, and God bless you.